Thank everyone for, I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of your very warm afternoon on this March Thursday where you may be tempted to go enjoy the outdoors. But hey, you can always take your phone or device outdoors and learn all about the nuts and bolts of legal specializations in the state of North Carolina. Um, this is a topic that came up in our section with respect to several applicable specializations, juvenile justice, the child welfare specialization, and we are currently investigating pursuing establishing a new specialization in education law. So if you have any interest in following the developments of that working group, please let me know. I'm happy to include you on that. But we have with us today two esteemed members at our state bar, not our bar association, but the state bar, who are here to educate the section on the nuts and bolts of legal specializations in North Carolina. So without further ado, Sheila and Brian, I hand it over to you.
Great. Thank you so much for having us. So I'm Brian Oten. I am the Associate Director at the North Carolina State Bar and Chief Ethics Counsel. And one of the other hats I wear is as the Director of the Legal Specialization Program. But I feel like that's really a misstatement because there's one person that truly runs and directs the program. So Sheila, do you want to introduce yourself real quickly?
Yes, hi everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come talk to us today. I'm Sheila Saucier. I'm the Managing Director for Legal Specialization, and I am here if anybody ever has any questions about the program, but we'll try to give you some information about it today as well.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. We got a little bit of a presentation here because we want to tell everybody about specialization. When we were approached about this this topic, of course, we thought it was a great idea to share this. And we hope that folks, whether you're watching right now or whether you're watching at a later date, you take a look at this and consider whether or not specialization might be a great pathway for you and your career. We certainly think that it is. And we want to tell you just what happens, what does it mean to be certified by the North Carolina State Bar in a particular specialty area, and how to do that. So we're going to kind of go through those kind of the broader topics and then the specific aspects of just how you go about pursuing specialty certification, because it really does make a difference in practice and really, I think, makes a difference in the lives of the public. So that's where we're gonna start. Specialty certification has been around for over 40 years. The interesting thing to me, this is me getting all nerdy about regulatory processes with the state bar, but specialty certification actually existed before mandatory CLE. The idea of certifying specialists came about as a way to kind of create an incentive for the bar to ensure the competency of lawyers in their specific areas of practice, but also to serve as a resource to the public. And I'd say, that's really kind of the to me, the biggest thing, the biggest value that certification offers the profession and the public today. We see so many different organizations, whether you want to call them organizations, businesses, anything like that, that try to offer different kind of self-laudatory credentials. And the public, it just can get really messy out there. Any person that's looking for a lawyer that ends up Googling somebody, trying to find some lawyer in their part of the world in a particular area of law, runs through so many different Google search results, and sometimes there's these different sort of like I said, these credentials. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're very legitimate. Sometimes there's questionable legitimacy to some of these credentials. And specialty certification through the state bar is an objective, valid certification that we as a bar, a collective regulatory, self-regulating profession, we offer this notion of certification that really offers kind of a statement about the lawyer's proficiency in a particular area of law. And that's really what drives the benefit to the public, because the public, in trying to sort through the noise of what lawyer should I retain? I need to, get some estate documents drafted. I need a lawyer to represent me in a domestic situation, a criminal law situation, anything like that. It can sometimes be hard to figure out who you need to retain. And the specialty certification program is really supposed to be that resource that the public can rely upon. And we're going to talk to you about just, again, what it means to be certified and why it is such a reliable sort of measure for the public's benefit. So yes, we started certifying lawyers in 1987 after the program was conceived in 1983. It's completely voluntary. Of course, as a lawyer in North Carolina, you can practice in any type of law, as long as you're doing so competently, of course. But you don't need to be certified to be a criminal law practitioner. However, you could be certified as a specialist in North Carolina criminal law if you so desire. This program, again, created for the benefit of the public, as well as to really ensure the competency of our lawyers in this state. But it's supposed to speak to the public as far as really offering this opportunity for them to see, well, what lawyers have a demonstrated commitment and skill set, proficiency in a particular area of law that I can rely upon when I, as a member of the consuming public, are trying to figure out who should I hire. So what's required to be a specialist? Well, there's, one of the things that we always try to stress is, specialists, while the specialists in our state really are fantastic, very knowledgeable lawyers, it's not supposed to be some sort of litmus test to say, well, you are officially an expert if you are specialized, if you are certified as a specialist. Specialty certification allows you to be certified in your particular area after you demonstrate a couple of different things. But the first step is that you have to be licensed for at least 5 years. So you have to be practicing law for 5 years. Now, of course, we can all understand that 5 years into practice, you're not going to be considered the expert in your field. But that's because specialization doesn't necessarily test expertise, it tests proficiency. It's supposed to be that thing that, again, the public can rely upon, that this person has a commitment to this area and they know what they're talking about. So you have to be licensed for 5 years. And then there's some general requirements. First, that you have substantial involvement in your particular practice area. And generally, we recognize that's about 25% of your practice is dedicated to that particular area of law. Where there's more on exactly how that's measured, and we'll get to that in a little bit. You have to have CLE requirements. CLE requirements, of course, is something that's going to be specific to the specialty area, but you have to basically demonstrate that you have taken a certain number of specific continuing legal education courses in your area of law or in some sort of related field over the prior 3 years. You have to pass a peer review, which means that we have a process, and I think Sheila's going to talk about that later, by which you as the applicant offer names of folks who can attest to your capability as a lawyer in that particular area. And it's an entirely confidential process. So the applicant does not get to see the results of that peer review. That confidentiality actually works to give the folks that ultimately decide on whether or not an applicant should be certified as a specialist, it gives them the opportunity to get genuine, candid feedback from those who are offering peer review. So you have to basically pass this step of showing that it's not just that you think you are a specialist, but that others who interact with you, judges that preside over your cases, opposing counsel, whoever it may be, they have also attested, yes, I have worked with this person, I've seen them in action in this particular area of law, and they're fantastic. I do think that they have the requisite knowledge and experience and skill set to be certified as a specialist. And then ultimately, and really what I think is probably the most critical thing, is that there's an examination. There's an examination that every lawyer who applies, who wants to be a certified specialist, has to pass. And that exam, of course, is going to be tailored to the specialty area. But those different components, substantial involvement, CLE, peer review, and the exam, all must be satisfied before somebody can be certified as a specialist. Now, you see here at the bottom, we're kind of recognizing that different areas of law have specific requirements. Like, for example, you might have, if you're applying for the appellate law specialty, you will not just have to show your substantial involvement in CLE courses, but substantial involvement is demonstrated by having a minimum number of oral arguments before the Court of Appeals or Supreme Court. So same thing with criminal law. There's a requirement that there's some sort of substantial trial experience. So there's different areas of law will have different requirements to really flush out the substantial involvement. Not just that somebody says, well, I'm a criminal law practitioner, and there's really, you're just kind of going on someone's word. There needs to be some sort of kind of substance behind your application and your statement that you think you are a specialist. And now I'm going to pause and just kind of say these different requirements to me really go to that first point that I made on the prior slide about how specialty certification benefits the public, because it offers this legitimate resource for those that are looking, those members of the consuming public that are looking for a lawyer. There's a lot of different organizations out there. Now I have to mention, there's also a number of national organizations that offer specialty certification. Those organizations are accredited through the American Bar Association. There's a number of other states that offer certification in particular areas of law, and they all have basically the same components here that we have for our specialty certification program. And of course, I think the big thing that where we differ from other organizations that, quite frankly, some folks or some of these organizations just kind of appear on the internet. And if you go and you submit an application, you can self-nominate, pay $500, and suddenly you are credentialed as an expert or whatever it is in whatever organization they've created on that given day. Those don't have exams. That's where we try to really not just make sure that the lawyers of North Carolina know about our specialty certification and the legitimacy and the integrity of our process, but we try to make sure that the public is aware of this as well. So when they are looking for a lawyer, one of the first questions, hopefully, that they look at is, well, is this lawyer qualified in this field? And maybe that's something that they'll think of. I need to check to see if this person is actually certified as a specialist by the North Carolina State Bar in this particular area of law. So we'll get to even more of that, how we actually try to communicate that to the public a little bit later on. Specialty certification areas. We have a number of specialty certification areas, 15 right now. There are another 2 that are being explored. And we, in North Carolina, having 15, we are, I would say, as far as other states go, we are one of the larger certification programs. Very proud, I have to say. I'm very proud attending these different national conferences on specialty certification. I'm proud to say that our program in North Carolina is viewed incredibly favorably. That we have a lot of good participation from our bar in our specialty program. And we have, like I said, we got 15 different areas of law. We were the first state to offer a certification in privacy and information security law. And I think really the only other states that are as large as us are the states like Florida and Texas and California. Although I think maybe California might not have as many areas of law that we certified. So we've got 15 different areas, but of course this isn't all the different areas of law that exist in the practice of law in North Carolina and beyond. We're going to talk a little bit later on about how somebody pursues the creation of a new specialty certification area. But one of the big things, and I think this is one of the, kind of goes into one of those incentives about becoming certified as a specialist in North Carolina. North Carolina has Rule 7.2 in our Rules of Professional Conduct that requires a lawyer to be certified by the state bar if they want to call themselves a specialist. Why is this? Well, the term specialist, historically, of course, since 1983, the term specialist has really been reserved. It's been protected, if you will. But it's been reserved for those that have actually demonstrated they are a certified specialist in that particular area of law, because the term specialist can be used and it usually conveys a focus of a lawyer's practice. It shows the person, who's reading, whether they're reading somebody's bio on a website or whatever it might be, but the consuming public, when they see a lawyer say, I am a specialist in this area of law, they're interpreting and understanding that to be this person is dedicated to this area of law. They have not just dedication by word, but by deed as well. They are committed to that area of law. They have substantial experience in it, a substantial skill set, knowledge, proficiency. Other folks recognize this person truly is specializing in this area of law. It's a greater sort of involvement in that practice area. And you can't call yourself a specialist in North Carolina unless you actually are certified as a specialist. And that's the whole notion of, to call yourself a specialist when you're not certified would be misleading and potentially could give the public a different understanding of the skill set that a particular lawyer has. So it's the specialty certification, again, great way to ensure the competency of our bar, great resource for the public. As a lawyer, it also allows you to distinguish yourself from your peers by saying you have gone the extra step. Not only are you involved in this area, you are certified as a specialist, and you can call yourself a specialist, which is a unique thing under our rules of professional conduct. Now, who is the person or the entity that kind of guides the program? We have a board of legal specialization as well as specialty committees that really do a lot of the work in making this program go. You just saw that screen where we had 15 different specialties out there. Well, the board of legal certification, board of legal specialization is tasked with really guiding the program to make sure that the standards between these specialty areas, which are very different. We all know as practitioners, real property is very different than family law, right? we see a lot of differences there. And so it can be, you can understand that each area of law will need to have its own set of requirements for substantial involvement. What CLE requirements are appropriate for real property is going to be different than the CLE requirements for a family law practitioner who wants to be certified as a specialist. The Board of Legal Specialization oversees the entire program, including all of those different specialties, and tries to make sure that the standards imposed on the certified specialists in each area of law are as similar as possible. Really trying to ensure consistency and maintain the integrity of the program. The board consists of 9 individuals, 6 lawyers, and 3 members of the public. That public feedback is so critical to help guide the board's decisions as far as what does the board need to do, what does the program need to do to make sure the public is aware of this program and how it can still best serve the public. Of course, specialization being a part of the overall North Carolina State Bar structure, the purpose of the North Carolina State Bar is to protect the public. And so the specialization program makes sure that we have public input so we can ensure that all of our efforts are really helping to achieve that general mission, that goal of public protection. And so you have the board kind of overseeing all the different specialties that we have and making those decisions on kind of a larger level. But each specialty that I listed on that prior slide has its own committee that does a lot of the specific work for that particular practice area. So these specialty committees, there's one committee for each specialty area. They're the ones that evaluate the applications that come in when somebody applies to be a certified specialist, or they evaluate the applications for recertification. Once you become a specialist, then you have to recertify on a periodic basis. We'll go over that in just a little bit. But this specialty committee, which consists typically of about 9 people, it's 9 certified lawyers. Sometimes there's advisory members that can be added on to a particular committee. But generally speaking, the members of this specialty committee are all certified specialists in that particular area of law. So you have other, say, for example, the criminal law specialty committee, you have other criminal law practitioners that are evaluating the applications of the individuals who want to become certified in criminal law. Or recertified, however, whatever the case may be. They're also the folks that write and revise and grade the exam in that particular area of law. So all that's to say, you have these committees that are specific to that practice area that consist of folks who have already been certified in that particular practice area, who are evaluating the applications and evaluating the exam responses to see who passes, who should be certified, and they ultimately make the recommendation to the board with regards to a particular applicant. Either a yes, this person passed the exam and we think they've met all the other requirements and should be certified as a specialist, or the other way, if the person does not pass the exam and things of that nature. So again, I think that the point here is just that these specialty committees really are, for one, they're significant to the program, and two, they really consist of some fantastic lawyers who are also already demonstrated to be committed to that practice area and are really looking to make sure that the folks that are certified actually meet those qualifications. In other words, it just is another measure of reliability and really integrity for that term, certified specialist in North Carolina. If you're a certified specialist, you did well. So why would you become certified? Those of you that are on this call that are licensed lawyers, you took an exam to become a licensed lawyer. Why do you want to take another bar exam? Well, let's talk about that. I know it sounds crazy, but let's just hear me out. We actually do a survey. There's a couple of different reasons. I think, yes, there's enhanced professionalism and competency that you get to really tap into. I think we hear that from certified specialists, particularly those that have even applied, that have taken the exam, but before they even become certified specialists, we survey folks and we say, why did you apply for certification? And routinely, the answer that we get a couple of folks that, for one, they say they were strongly encouraged by a peer or someone at their firm. They're just saying, somebody in the legal community says, hey, I think you'd be fantastic as a specialist. I think you are qualified to become a certified specialist and you should really pursue it. But then you see a lot of folks that say, this is something that's really going to be a reflection of enhanced professionalism. It's something that's going to help the public to identify me with my skill set. So people, apply and pursue certification because of these different ideals. We're not just kind of pulling these out of thin air. We do see that a lot of folks would want to be certified because of the benefit for the public, because it's something that really recognizes the skills, the expertise that you've accumulated over the years. Certainly your reputation, I think everyone recognizes reputation is so incredibly important in the profession. I remember, somebody told me a long time ago, your reputation enters the courtroom long before you do and stays long after you left. Right, and so that's where that is built from your own efforts, your own practice. Especially certification is kind of that additional, really kind of verified credential that really confirms your reputation in that particular area. And we've seen that consumers truly do value certification. Now, what am I talking about when I say that? So we actually did a survey back in 2022, a public survey where we tried to get a sense of, well, who knows about certification? Does the public really know about specialty certification, and how does it impact their decision-making process? There's a lot. This is all on our website. If you go to the State Bar's main page, you can go to the specialty program, and you'll find this on our website if you're wanting to look at this. I know there's a lot of small font in front of you, but we had a great response. We had over 1,200 folks actually fill out this survey, and we had a good, just broad sort of representation as far as age and household income. And the gist is that we did this. We tried to get a sense of, what do folks prefer? What does the consuming public prefer when they're actually taking a look at hiring a lawyer? Now, we asked generally first, just these folks that took the survey, what do you value the most? Is it board certification or years of experience? And the first response was really, as you can see here, almost 62% said, I value years of experience more than board certification. So we put that to a test. And we showed two different profiles, and basically gave them the scenario, said, you're looking for a lawyer to represent you in a family law case. So which one would you be more likely to hire? Is it lawyer A, who has more years of experience, or lawyer B, who has less years of experience? Similar sort of reviews, similar star ratings, all that kind of stuff. But you can see here, basically one set of the survey participants received the control, the profiles that you see on your left. And the other, another set of the survey participants took the test where they saw lawyer A still had more years of experience. Lawyer B had less years of experience. However, lawyer B was certified as a specialist. And the results were pretty interesting because the control, like they indicated before, more people chose the lawyer that had more years of experience. They said they value years of experience over anything else. And that's how it reflected in that first set of different comparing lawyer profiles. But the folks that actually took the test, that's received the comparison of lawyer with more years of experience versus lawyer with less years of experience, but was board certified, suddenly it switched. Now you see that something like nearly 63% of those folks that were presented with that profile, they actually went against what they said they preferred. And they chose the person with less years of experience, but board certification. So it was a really interesting result. We saw this kind of throughout. We presented a number of different scenarios, and time after time, the survey participants chose the individuals that had board certification but less years of experience. They went against what they said they preferred because board certification meant something to them. They may not even realized it, but when they saw that a lawyer is board certified, it gave them, I think, a level of confidence, comfort, really reliability, the sense that I can hire this lawyer, I can retain this lawyer, and I'm going to feel like I will be properly represented by this person. So there's a number of reasons why I think somebody would want to pursue certification. I think one of the things that we've seen is that not only does it create a general sense of increased professionalism, it certainly increases your competency. And I have to say, even the lawyers that have applied for certification and were unsuccessful in the exam, they all have said, I still feel like I'm a better lawyer because I prepared for the exam, because I learned something during the process of studying for that exam, and I'm coming back next year and I'm going to pass that exam. And I gotta say, that typically, we've seen that a number of times. So yes, this whole process, it does increase professionalism and increases competency, but the public really not just benefits from it, they also recognize the value that board certification brings to a lawyer's profile, to a lawyer's potential, I guess, for working on their case. It is a good thing overall for everyone. So with that said, Sheila, I'm going to ask you to take us through just how does somebody actually become board certified in this or through our process here in North Carolina?
All right. So here's a glimpse at the certification timeline, which is the application period for 2026 is currently open. It opened on March 1st. Typically every year it goes from March 1st till approximately May 1st. We usually extend it out to about May 11th because we always get a bunch of people that are applying last minute. We do offer $50 discount on the application fee if applications are received by April 1st. So all the applications are usually in by mid-May, and then the board meets to approve applicants in August, and exams are offered every year in October. How do you apply for certification? It's actually very simple. You just go into your State Bar membership portal. As you see from the arrow down here, there's a button down here, new specialization application. That button only becomes available after March 1st, but you click on that button and it brings you right into the application process. You do not have to complete the whole application in one sitting. If you get started on it and you need to take a break, you can come back to it and come back to where you left off. So sometimes people start it on March 1st and their goal is to finish it by the end of March. And if you ever have any questions, if you are filling out an application, don't ever hesitate to reach out because we're happy to help. Okay, what will I have to do to become a specialist? So some of these things Brian has already mentioned. When you fill out the application, you will be asked to demonstrate your substantial involvement. It asks for the prior 5 years, how many hours per year you spent dedicated to that practice area specifically. We look at your CLE for the last 3 years before you apply to make sure that you have CLE that's specific to that practice area. Each practice area has their own standards for CLE of what they require. And that is posted on our website, but you can also always reach out to me if you're not sure. Then you need to have a sufficient peer review. We ask for 10 references and we require 5 to be returned to us. So they don't all have to reply. You know, a lot of times people get the reference form and they just don't stop to take the time to fill it out. So we do ask for more than we actually need for that particular reason. And then once all of that is satisfied, you can prove your proficiency via the exam. The exam is specific to your practice area. It's usually about 6 hours. It depends. Appellate's a little different and privacy is a little different, but most of the exams are 6 hours long. So it's an all-day exam with a combination of essay questions and multiple choice questions. The exams are given remotely for some of them, and some of them we ask to be given in person here at the State Bar building. And they are always offered throughout the month of October. What happens after you are certified? So that would be a big congratulations, of course. You have reached a status that only about 3.5% of your colleagues have achieved. Only about 3.5% of all the lawyers in North Carolina are certified as specialists. We have 1,192 board certified specialists currently and a community of almost 34,000 lawyers. So you see that as a very small piece of the pie.
And Sheila, I'm going to just jump in real quick to let folks know that's pretty universal across the nation. Different states or those national organizations, when they look at kind of how many specialists they have compared to their lawyer populations, that roughly 3 to 5% of the lawyer population being certified as specialists rings true throughout the country. So North Carolina is right there. If anything, I've seen some states where only 2% of their lawyers, maybe 1.5%, are certified as specialists. So that's where I feel like our program has a very good number, but it is quite unique in North Carolina to be certified as a specialist.
It is. As a board certified specialist, you can leverage this powerful differentiator across all your marketing channels. We suggest you mention it in all your listings, social media, ads, email signature, on your website. Research reveals that nearly a 3-fold increase in inquiries occur just because you have included your certification status on your listings and in your communications. And we do offer on our website, we have, once you're certified, you have access to a media kit, and it has all these logos that you can use, badges, and a branding guide, so that we help you market your certification using these tools that we provide. You also have the ability to search for a board certified specialist on the North Carolina State Bar website by clicking on this button here. There's a drop-down menu. You can click on employment law, which is our newest certification, and it'll bring up all the certified specialists in employment law that we currently have. What is required of a specialist? So once you are a specialist, there are annual requirements. You pay annual dues. You need to keep up your CLE hours and your substantial involvement in that practice area. There are requirements that are listed, which are specific to each specialty area. And then recertification takes place every 5 years. There's an application that you fill out. You do not ever have to take the exam again. Some people think they have to take the exam again, but you do not ever have to do that again. But you do have to keep your substantial involvement in the practice area up. You need to keep your CLE hours for that particular practice area to meet the requirements that are listed. And you have to have a peer review every 5 years. However, for recertification, we only ask for 6 references and we only need 3 return forms. But it's the same idea as what Brian said earlier, where your peers are saying that you should still be certified in this practice area, that you still are what they would consider a specialist.
Yeah, and Sheila, I'll say, this is, I think, one of the things I appreciate that lends more credibility to the credential that's offered through specialty certification, that once you're certified as a specialist, it's not just kind of okay, well, you passed an exam, therefore you are forever a certified specialist. No, you have to continue to show that commitment to the practice area, that a substantial involvement, you're staying updated on the latest trends via CLE, things of that nature, and that your peers also still agree with your proficiency, your status as a specialist, which again, just lends more of that reliability for the public to know when they see a certified specialist, they can feel confident in the services they're going to receive.
Not too far. Okay, so now if you are interested in certification, but you're not ready to apply in 2026, you want to apply 2 years from now, you can fill out this declaration of intent. It's under the forms tab on our website. And on this form, you would just say what practice area you think you would like to be certified in and what year you think you would be ready to apply. And once you fill this out, it comes to us and we can kind of keep track of the requirements, deadlines, and make sure that you're staying on track with your CLE and everything else. We'll reach out to you when it gets to be the year that you had suggested you would like to apply and let you know where you stand, what you still need to do. So this is a good thing to do if you feel like you want to apply, but not just yet. And this Brian touched on earlier as well. My area of law doesn't have a specialty certification. What can I do? So there's 4 basic steps. There's pieces to each of these steps, but basically the initiation of a board study, a required showing, comment from committees and counselors, and then the appointment of a specialty committee. So we do have education law, which is considering pushing through their proposed specialty. And we also currently have insurance law. And insurance law is currently on stage 3. So we're hoping that they'll be getting further along and we'll have some insurance law certified specialists in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and I'll add that the new specialties, this is something that I think the areas of law that really stand out are these ones that really have become more critical for the public. I think child welfare being a great example of a specialty that came about when we saw there's increased complexity in child welfare laws and just the need for qualified lawyers who, and being able to identify for the public qualified lawyers who have that demonstrated skill set and experience in child welfare law. And so it's not like every single specialty area gets its own, or I should say, every area of law gets its own specialty. One area of law that we've had proposed to us as a specialty a couple times is just general civil litigation. And that's one that the board and, ultimately the State Bar Council and the Supreme Court, they all have to weigh in on whether or not a particular area of law gets its own specialty certification. But civil litigation is just so broad. Of course, it is an incredible skill set, but it has not been successful in going through the specialty certification creation process because there's that question of, well, are you talking about a domestic lawyer that's a civil litigation? Is it something dealing with real property? Is it personal injury? What are we talking about here? It's just a bit too broad. And so in that regard, it may not be that helpful for the public to see, well, this person is a civil litigation attorney or specialist, therefore I'm going to hire them for this particular family law matter, and the lawyer gets the call and says, well, I really only deal in personal injury law. That's just not going to be that helpful. And so that's where you see some of these more specific areas of law that get the specialty certification. And it's because that area of law, one, has some increased complexity or just maybe kind of some recognized complexity, that two, the public would benefit being able to identify a lawyer that is a specialist in, say, employment law or in child welfare, privacy and information security, things of that nature. So, there's a lot of considerations that go into the creation of specialties, and certainly, if anyone is out there that is practicing a particular area that they want to explore the creation of a new specialty certification, you can give us a call. Sheila and I would be happy to meet with you and talk about the different things, the different steps. I'll just say very broadly, one of the very first steps that is, a proposed specialty needs to take or hurdle they need to clear is that there need to be 100 lawyers that agree that area of law should be considered a specialty area or specialties or specialist certified area of law. You need an additional 20 folks that are willing to take the exam or that are interested in taking the exam, pursuing that certification. And then at least another 10 folks that are willing to serve on a specialty committee to actually create this specialty. So there's some specifics that we would get into with you if you're looking at this at a later date and you're thinking, my area of law isn't represented in the specialty program. How do I get it there? There's some steps, and you basically need to show that there's some support in the legal community for that particular proposed specialty, and we will be happy to talk you through any of those different steps. So, with that said, Sheila, what else have we missed?
Let's see. I think that's the end. So here's my email address and Brian's email address if you need to reach out to us, or as Brian said, you can always give us a call. But I think we'll just open it up now to see if anybody has any questions for us.
Can you talk a little bit about what's involved when a board study is initiated?
Sure. And Sheila, I'm going to take back control of the mouse.
Yes, go right ahead.
I'm going to go ahead and turn this off so now we can just talk. So the board study, really it's, I guess there's kind of a couple of different components. One is that the board does look at the just the proposal to see, is this the type of practice area that really fits with the program. Like I said before, like when we've had folks that have suggested civil litigation as a specialty area, ultimately it just would not be as helpful to the public. At least the board has concluded that on a couple prior occasions. I think they first took a look at that in the 90s, and they've looked at it a couple of times since then. Really, it comes back to that same conclusion that, is the public really going to benefit from this? And if there's a chance that it would just cause more confusion, then that's not really a benefit to the public. So one of the first steps that the board takes is, well, let's look at the proposed area of law. And is that something that really it can be defined to say, a specialist in this particular area of law is someone who's demonstrated this type of proficiency. It's this particular area of law. There's parameters on it, and there's not a lot of overlap between one particular practice area and another. A good example of that overlap question that we had was when we looked at child welfare law becoming a new specialty. One of the biggest questions that I heard from state bar counselors, and I just to provide that context, I want to pause and say, ultimately, whatever the board does, if the board recommends creating a specialty, it's really an amendment to the administrative rules of the state bar, the overall North Carolina State Bar, which has to go through the State Bar Council. That's that Congress of lawyers. We all elect a counselor for our district, and then it has to go to the Supreme Court for final approval. And so when we were looking at child welfare law, I heard from some of the state bar counselors that don't practice. Maybe they're criminal practitioners, maybe they're transactional attorneys. But I heard folks ask, well, is there overlap with family law? Isn't there too much overlap that would actually cause confusion for the consuming public as far as, which lawyer are you supposed to hire? Which credential means what? But then I spoke with some family lawyers, including family lawyers that are on the State Bar Council, who said child welfare absolutely is a different animal. It's a different section. It's a different part of the statutes, and it's something that I, as a family lawyer, often need to refer my clients to a child welfare lawyer. And it would be great to have the resource for me as a professional to say, where's a child welfare lawyer, a qualified, proficient child welfare lawyer in, X city, whatever it might be. And so that overlap question was posed, but it was very clearly answered that no, these are family law and child welfare are two separate areas of law, and somebody might be able to hold a specialty certification in both areas of law, absolutely. And in fact, lawyers can hold you basically can be certified in two different areas of law. But that was how we kind of first evaluated that step. Now the board also goes, and after looking at, is this an appropriate area of law? Well, to have a specialty certification, they look also at that survey that we create, like we've done with insurance law, where they basically gather signatures. Are there 100 lawyers that think this should be a specialty certification area? And after they ultimately see that there is support, it's an appropriate area of law, there's support in the legal community for this particular specialty area. And then you have to get to drafting the parameters for that particular specialty area. And without getting too much into the weeds, but like I said, these are amendments to the administrative code. And so every specialty area that exists in our program has its own section of the administrative code that states what are the standards for becoming a certified specialist in this particular area of law. Like we said, we talked about substantial involvement, CLE, exam, the exam contents and all that. And all of that is really kind of captured in those administrative rules. So there's a lot of different steps from kind of the concept being approved to actually seeing the words on the paper that will go in the administrative code that say this is the area of law that's being certified, and maybe sometimes this is what it's not, and as well as what does it take for someone to be certified? What does substantial involvement in employment law actually mean? What CLE courses are appropriate to qualify someone as a certified specialist? Family law, for example, has, of course, you can take family law CLEs, but they have other related fields, like just general mediation skills, trial skills, because they know that lawyers, you might just take a general trial course. You might take a course on conducting depositions or other evidentiary issues that are related to the practice of family law. And so there's kind of, you see in the different specialty areas, sometimes they have CLE requirements that are, something like you have to take 36 hours over the prior 3 years in family law or related fields. There has to be some sort of balance there. So yeah, there's a lot of different steps kind of going from concept to actually seeing the standards written out, which ultimately those written standards are the ones that go through the State Bar Council and the Supreme Court for approval. And once the Supreme Court approves, if the Supreme Court approves, then basically upon being approved, then that specialty is effective. It is in existence, and the State Bar can start certifying lawyers in that particular area of law.
Thank you.
Ryan, it looks like there's a question in the chat that kind of goes right alongside with what you were saying. Catherine is asking, I take both, or mentioned, I take both family and child welfare CLEs. She's not sure if she's got enough child welfare CLEs. Do you want to talk a little bit about waivers in this context as well?
Yeah, sure. So there are, I guess we have in our general program structure, there's the possibility of waivers, waivers of strict compliance that the board can grant. And that's really, it's that option. It's not something that the board, likes to exercise just very kind of flippantly, because these standards exist for a reason, and it's something that that the board wants the standards and the certification to mean something. And so, generally speaking, I feel like the board is pretty consistent for initial certification, for requiring that lawyers do actually meet the standards as drafted for initial certification. But when you get to recertification, there's the understanding of just practical realities that sometimes, when you're looking at the prior 5 years of work, there may have been 1 year where, maybe there are certain specialties that have an annual requirement. Yes, it's covering the prior 5 years between initial certification and your first recertification. You've got 5 years in which you're supposed to do these different CLE requirements. Some of those specific practice areas say each year there has to be a minimum number of CLE hours in one particular year. But the board recognizes that there may be years that just for whatever reason, the CLE didn't get done in that particular year. Things happen. You have a trial that ended up taking, weeks more than anticipated, whatever it might be. And so there's an opportunity, so if somebody misses, let's say, usually the floor is or the general requirement is, 12 hours per year in your particular specialty area, but a minimum of 6 hours. In any one of those years. So you have to average like 12 per year over those 5 years, but at least in any given year, you have 6 hours that you have to take. If you only get, 1 hour in a particular year, that doesn't mean you have to throw away your certification. That's where the waiver can come in, and the board can try to reasonably approach that, especially if you get all the other hours done. As any one of us knows, some years that it's like when CLE rains, it pours. You go to 2 conferences or whatever it is, and suddenly you've got a ton of CLE hours, and then the next year there's either whether it's program or whether it's just life that got in the way. Then sometimes you just don't get as many. So there's some flexibility there that I think the board has historically recognized, particularly for recertification. But for initial certification, they are pretty intent on having those standards met. So if you're ever in a spot where you're wondering, gosh, do I have enough of my CLE hours in that would potentially qualify me, give us a call, because we can pull your CLE record, we can review it. Of course, you can pull your CLE record in your membership portal on your own, but if you have questions about that and you want us to take a look at it, we are absolutely happy to to get on a call with you and take a look and say, yeah, it looks like, maybe it'd be a good idea to take 2 more hours in a particular area, whatever it might be. But we'll talk you through it.
Mhm. Yeah, I have people reach out to me all the time, either for initial or recertification, and that have questions about, their CLE hours, and I'm happy to look at that. So many people that have asked me, and then they're like, "Oh, I was losing sleep over this. I'm so glad to hear that I'm okay." So just don't ever wait. Just reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I don't want anybody losing sleep, but
Yeah.
I can check on your CLE, Catherine, and let you know where you stand for child welfare.
Yeah. This is one of those situations where I know nobody wants to call the state bar. I know, but this is like the really nice part of the state bar. All right. It's Sheila. All right.
Very nice. Yeah, I actually had somebody that wanted to apply this year that had a gap in their substantial involvement because of the hurricane in the western part of the state
Yes.
a few years ago. So they asked if they would even be qualified to apply. And that question was a little iffy for me because I don't want to have them go through the whole process of applying and then the committee looks at it and says no. I didn't think they would because they do have a very good reason why they were not working for a while there. But I reached out to the committee and asked them, is this something you would approve if the application came to you? And they said, yes, absolutely. Based on the facts of a significant hurricane that went through the area, we understand that would affect your practice area. So.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Sheila, because that's a great example of I guess what I see as the incredibly reasonable mindset that the specialty committees and the board really employ here. When COVID hit and court wasn't court, it's like we had remote hearings, but people aren't in there. Jury trials went down, things of that nature, and frankly, we're dealing with a ripple effect. This is across the nation. Jury trials are down. And so there's a lot of kind of reevaluating standards to make sure they're relevant to the practice while also still, being something that creates reliability and credibility for the public when they see that certified specialist credential. But that's something I remember when we hit those COVID years that the board was dealing with a lot of waivers because folks that had typically attended a conference every year for CLE, or they didn't hit all of their required trials or oral arguments, whatever it was, that there just needed to be some additional consideration, and I think a lot of reasonable conclusions were drawn there. So all that's to say, if you have a question, if you feel like I'm really close, I think I qualify, but I might be missing this 1 hour or 2 hours of CLE, or I don't know if they would consider this type of experience to kind of reach their level of significant trial experience. One, we can talk to you as staff members, but two, like Sheila just said, sometimes Sheila will just reach out to the committee itself and say, hey, what would you think about this if this came before you go through the process of fully applying? So that's, again, we try to make it easy for folks and try to answer questions. We don't want you to waste your time. Any other questions?
I see that Kira thanked you for your information and did ask if we might get a copy of the slide deck.
Man, everybody wants our slides. Yeah, I think we can do this. I think we can do that.
All right, thank you so much. Well, we're right up at 3:58. Any last quick questions for our esteemed guests? Okay, well, I just want to thank both of you so much for being here today to offer this extremely important information. I know myself as chair of this section, one thing that is exceptionally important to me is that we have an outstanding bar. We have an outstanding group of attorneys across the state, highly educated, highly trained to work in these very important areas of children's rights, juvenile justice, and we also have a lot of involvement in our section with education law, even though we are not the education law section. These are critical areas that impact families, children and families across our state. So it is so important that I know that all of our members of our section understand how they can access this process to, as you wonderfully pointed out, Brian, to challenge themselves, also to recognize their current level of expertise that they operate with, and for how to move forward with the creation of an education law specialization. And I'll just say my I arrived at this career because when I needed an attorney who was qualified, I could not find one. And I needed an attorney who could help me with special education with my children. And I was told that the person knew of one really great attorney who didn't practice anymore, because that's Judge Stacy Bottenheimer, who decided to be a judge. So I ended up going to law school because I needed the legal services. Not everybody can do that. I don't recommend it. So really, that aspect of how can we best serve the public? How can we best serve individuals across our state is always at the heart of everything I want to bring to this section. So thank you so much. Those of you in attendance, now you know the people to reach out to. They are very friendly. They love talking about this program, so don't hesitate to reach out to them with your questions. And just to plug real quickly, if this sounded interesting to you, but you're wondering a little bit more about the actual experience of attorneys going through this process, we will be having a part 2 that will be taking place on April 16th, also at 3:00. And Bersha will be on a panel. She has the juvenile justice specialization. Our membership chair, Dina Fleming, will be to talk about her experience with the child welfare specialization. And then we will also have a retired judge, Judge Hartsfield, who was a district court judge and heard many, many juvenile dispositions and adjudications. And she will talk about from the bench what it means to have competent attorneys with experience practicing before her. So if you would like to sign up for that, we will have a link actually, it's in the comments right now. We'll be sending that out so we can get a little more information. And all of that will be information for you before the deadline for specializations for this year. So wanted to get that time. So just once again, thank you so much, Brian and Sheila. Thank you, Bersha, for working so hard to help us assemble this wonderful program. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having us, Janu and Bersha. We appreciate you giving us an opportunity to talk about this great program. If you have questions, feel free to give us a call, shoot us an email. I also have to say, if anybody's really interested in the history of specialization, there's a book by Justice Edmonds, former Justice Edmonds, that he just published. It's available through the ABA website, but it's a good read if you really want to get it, because as you can tell, we nerd out about this stuff. So this is a good thing. But please do consider us a resource, whatever y'all need. So thank you.
Yes, most definitely.
Thank you. Everyone have a great day. Have a great day. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.